When we think of the Phantom of the Opera, most of us immediately picture the sweeping melodies of a musical or the dramatic masked figure from a film. But Gaston Leroux's original 1910 novel is something quite different. It's a Gothic thriller, a psychological mystery, and a deeply unsettling study of isolation. The story doesn't start with a song, it starts with a claim. The narrator, Leroux himself, insists that the opera ghost was not a ghost at all, but a real man, a living person whose existence was tied to a series of tragic events at the Paris Opera House spanning several decades. To understand the story, you have to understand the setting. The Paris Opera House isn't just a building in this book, it's a labyrinth. It's a massive, breathing entity with hidden passages, trapdoors, and subterranean lakes. The staff lives in a state of constant, low-level dread. There are rumors of a skeletal, yellow-skinned figure haunting the corridors, and a specific seat, box 5, is always kept reserved for the ghost. This isn't just superstition, it's a rule that the management follows out of a mixture of fear and respect. The tension breaks into real violence when a stagehand named Joseph Buquet is found hanging in the cellars. His death is a signal that the ghost is no longer just a shadow in the wings, but a physical threat. Amidst this atmosphere of fear, we meet Christine Daaé. She's a young, gifted singer whose voice has a quality that seems almost otherworldly. As her career takes off, she becomes the talk of the opera, but she carries a secret that troubles those around her. She speaks of an angel of music who has been sent to tutor her, a divine presence that speaks to her through a voice she can hear but cannot see. This is the first hint of the psychological manipulation at play. This angel is, in reality, Erik, the Phantom. He is a brilliant musical genius, but he is also a man who has been profoundly deformed by society, living in the darkness of the opera's substructures. He has used his intellect and his knowledge of the building's architecture to create a private, secret world where he can control everything. As Christine's stardom grows, Raoul de Chagny, a young and handsome naval officer, enters the picture. He has known Christine since they were children, and he falls deeply in love with her. But their romance is constantly interrupted by the invisible presence of the Phantom. Erik's demands become more aggressive and more expensive. He demands a monthly allowance of 20,000 francs and total control over certain aspects of the theatre. He isn't just a stalker, he is a shadow landlord using financial blackmail and the threat of sabotage to exert his will over the aristocratic management of the opera. The tension finally explodes during a performance of Faust. In a moment of calculated chaos, the massive chandelier of the opera house is released, crashing down into the audience. It's a spectacular, terrifying piece of sabotage that shifts the story from psychological harassment to lethal public violence. In the confusion and the panic that follows, Christine is snatched away. Raoul, desperate to save her, finds an unexpected ally in a man known as the Persian. The Persian is a figure with a long, personal history with Erik, and he understands the darkness of the opera better than anyone else. Together, they descend into the bowels of the opera house, moving through a nightmare of mechanical traps and illusions. Erik has turned the underground into a massive, living machine. They navigate a simulated desert where sounds and mirages are used to drive intruders to the brink of madness. It becomes clear that Erik's mind is a reflection of the architecture he inhabits, complex, layered, and designed to keep the world out while trapping his obsessions within. They eventually reach the heart of the labyrinth, where Erik presents Christine with a horrific ultimatum. He has her and Raoul cornered in his subterranean home. He demands that she marry him, or he will trigger a mechanism that will destroy the opera house and everyone inside it. To make the choice even more agonizing, he presents her with 2 bronze insects, a scorpion and a grasshopper. This is a psychological torture, a way to force her to participate in her own captivity. In the darkness of the rising waters, as the chambers begin to flood, Christine is faced with a choice that is less about the insects and more about the soul of the man before her. As the water rises and death seems certain, Christine does something Erik never expected. Instead of reacting with horror or hatred, she looks at him and sees not a monster, but a man who is profoundly, devastatingly alone. She shows him compassion. She kisses him on the forehead and weeps for his suffering. This single act of human connection is the turning point of the entire story. Erik, who has spent his entire life being met with screams and revulsion, is broken by her pity. He cannot handle the weight of her mercy. it is more painful to him than her hatred would have been. Overwhelmed by the realization of his own isolation and the fact that he can never truly possess her soul, Erik's resolve collapses. He releases Raoul and Christine, giving them a chance to escape. He gives Christine a gold ring and instructs her to return only to bury him when he finally dies, acknowledging that his life is one of solitude. The story concludes with the lovers escaping to live a quiet life in Scandinavia, leaving the shadows of Paris behind. Erik is left to die in his darkness, eventually passing away from what can only be described as a broken heart or the sheer weight of his own loneliness. When we look back at the book, it's easy to see why it has stayed so relevant. There is a profound duality at work here, the contrast between the sublime, beautiful music of the opera and the grotesque, terrifying deformity of the man who creates it. Leroux uses the opera house itself as a physical manifestation of Erik's psyche. The building is a maze of secrets and traps, a place where the surface level of high society and art hides a much more primal, chaotic reality underneath. The Angel of Music is perhaps the most chilling part of the narrative. It's a study in how easily faith and talent can be manipulated. Erik doesn't just want to be loved, he wants to be worshipped, and he uses Christine's own spiritual devotion to weave himself into her identity. He creates a divinity to mask his own humanity, making it impossible for her to distinguish between a miracle and a manipulation. There is also a recurring motif regarding the gaze. The power of the mask in this story is central. For Erik, the mask is a necessity to hide a face that the world has rejected, but it is also a tool of power. He is the one who watches from the shadows, the one who sees everything while remaining unseen. This creates a power imbalance that is fundamentally about control. By controlling who sees him and who is allowed to see the truth, he attempts to control the narrative of his own existence. Finally, we can see the element of class and social control. The Phantom isn't just a rogue, he is a disruptor of the social order. He uses the money and the prestige of the opera house to hold the aristocracy hostage. He turns the theatre, a place meant for the display of high culture, into a site of chaos and terror, proving that beneath the polished veneer of the 19th century elite, there are forces of obsession and madness that no amount of money or social standing can truly contain. In the end, The Phantom of the Opera is less about a ghost and more about the terrifying possibility that the most monstrous thing in the world isn't a creature in the dark, but the profound, irreparable loneliness of a human being who has been denied the simplest of connections.